Welcome to Real Estate Radio Power Investing, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate investing. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
So nice to have you back with us today on Real Estate Radio Power Investing. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for this weekly program on investing in real estate, how to giving you education to empower you to invest more successfully. We're broadcasting from the number one radio station for business in the San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. You can go to our website, tomwilsonproperties.com, to find a lot of educational information and to see the podcasts that we have from the prior programs as well as this one. You can look up on the website by the guest name or the subject, and you can find going on 4.5 years now worth of podcasts with some wonderful guests such as Robert Kiyosaki and Dr. Doug Duncan and Bruce Norris and Sean O'Toole and today's guest as well, Linda McKnight. So there's a lot of education information on there. We always welcome your input for future guests and future topics as well. And we always like having you to sign up for the newsletter. If you sign up for that, then you get access to a lot of products that we can only offer to those who we have relationships with and are in our database. So Wilson Investment Properties provides turnkey rental homes of high value and also syndications for commercial and multifam products that are typically for $50,000 a share so that you can have ownership in a large commercial multifam product that normally only wealthy investors and institutions can afford to have. So today's program is about a way to avoid paying capital gains. Everybody likes to avoid tax, and often people know about some of them, but not all of them. And this is one today that we'll present to you, which is a relatively new model that might apply and help you in your process of transitioning from an investment that is maybe not making as much money as you'd like over to something else that might. So we have Linda McKnight with us today, and she's been a real estate professional and private money lender since 2006. She's the founder of Keep Your Wealth Sales Solutions, and it's a organization that indeed helps many investors to find ways to avoid paying capital gains, defer the taxes so that they can invest in higher yield products. Linda, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you here today.
Absolutely.
So Linda, if you will, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the real estate industry and business?
I've been an agent since 2006. I've been involved in real estate investing, pretty much my entire life. My family was involved in real estate investing, not per se in rental properties so much, but my family owned childcare centers. So, believe it or not, that's a way of investing in real estate.
It certainly is.
When you own a business that owns the land and the building, then you are a real estate investor. And so, my family has been involved in. Prior to real estate, my family was involved in childcare centers. So. That's how long I've been involved in real estate investing.
And how long were you in that business?
In the childcare industry, about 25 years altogether. My family owned 2 childcare centers, one in Sunnyvale and one in San Jose, for 22 years. And I was in the industry prior to our family purchasing our first center, so long time.
Clearly, you got to have a lot of energy to be in that business as well.
Absolutely.
as well as some business savvy to be successful that long.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, organization and energy, and it takes a lot of energy. That's for sure.
So when you got your real estate license, what you did used it for the lending part of the market for a while, or?
After I got my real estate license, the way that I got my real estate license, the way that whole thing happened, the transition from the childcare industry to getting my real estate license was an unfortunate situation, actually. In 2002, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she had 2 properties, 2 daycare centers and rental property, and the house she lived in, all in the Bay Area. And this is when the run-up was happening, and so she had a sizable estate at that time. And so when we started the process of putting her affairs in order, we discovered that we had a significant estate tax problem. And so that began the whole process why I'm doing this capital gains thing now. But at that time, when we were going through that process, it looked like we were going to be, the commissions to sell all of her properties was going to be about a $200,000 outlay of money. And I thought, well, we're selling as we were going through the process to get her affairs in order, we were selling the daycare center. So we were selling my job. So I thought, well, I'll get my real estate license and then I'll sell the properties and I'll make that commission. So that seemed like a logical transition. And so that's how I ended up getting my real estate license, which I did in fact sell a couple of her properties. And so that was my ushering into the real estate industry, out of childcare into real estate. And then when my mom did pass away, I inherited some of that estate. And so that was what I started doing the private money lending with, was that capital was used to do. So I have been a real estate agent all of these years, but most of my focus has been on the lending side of it, and that was fine. However, I recently decided that I probably should sell more homes. With the value of things, there's an opportunity there. And so I started looking for ways to differentiate myself as a real estate agent. And I found this strategy for deferring capital gains tax. And so that's what started the whole Keep Your Wealth sales solutions and all of that.
Okay. So it started off, as many things do, a personal need, personal goal.
Absolutely.
And in that research, you found that, there's more than one way to defer capital gains. One of the certainly most real estate investors know about 1031 exchange, even if they've not done it.
Correct.
And I'm certainly familiar with that. I've probably done, 50 of them or so. Mm-hmm. Works well. Mm-hmm. Boy, it can be pretty palm sweaty.
Yes, absolutely.
Where the time constraints are on them.
It's a very stressful strategy. It works. There's no question about it. And especially here in the Bay Area, it's very, very difficult because of our inventory problem. It's doing a 1031 is great if you can find a replacement property. It's the replacement property portion where the sweaty palms come in. Yep. Because if you can't find a property that's suitable, what do you do? So that's a challenge, where some of the other strategies that people can employ to defer capital gains tax don't have those same restrictions, and so you have options. So, and that's what I do, is I have looked at every single strategy that exists for deferring capital gains tax, and different ones have different advantages over other ones, and I have a favorite that I think we're going to talk about today.
Okay. Yeah, my first 1031 exchange was I was selling properties in California when I learned that the cash flow was much higher in other places, and I researched the country for a year, and Dallas-Fort Worth came out on top, and Texas in general. And so I found that I could sell one starter home in San Jose and exchange it into 13 duplexes in Dallas-Fort Worth. And after that was complete, my intermediary for the 1031 says, "Well, Tom, I was a little concerned for you, but you seem to grasp the situation and be on top of it." He says, "Most people, I'd tell you can't do that." Mm-hmm. He says, "In fact, I've never had a client that exchanged that many in that time." So you were able to sell one property here in the Bay Area, and you were able to buy 13. Execute on 13. Yep. Wow, 13 that's impressive. That's impressive, because just executing on one can be sweaty palms. But, oh my gosh, 13 was something else. So there are two tricks that made that work. One was that I identified what I was buying before I put up the property for sale. There you go. And number two, they were all from one seller. Oh, well, there you go. So and then again, finding one seller that has 13 to sell was, boy,
Well, you lined that one up well. Congratulations on that.
And when you have that many that you're dealing with, the rules are that you got to do all of them.
Yeah.
You got to get them all closed.
That's right. Within 180 days, otherwise it fails. And that's one thing that we, my group, we work with people all the time that they're coming up against their 45 days and they haven't been able to identify yet, or we just were talking to someone that their 1031 failed because they waited until 2 days before the 180 days to take action to try to find another alternative. And it takes time. It's like once you decide the 1031 is not going to work, it takes time to get set up in something else that will work, that you can do the paperwork and get things.
So let's talk about that part just a little bit in the couple minutes we have left in this segment. 1031s, if you have things lined up, they can work just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've done, I think, close to 50 of them, and they've all been successful.
Congratulations!
I'm amazed at how many people I talk to say, I got down toward the end and I just couldn't find anything that looked okay, and so I just wound up paying the capital gains.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we've been fortunate with that, but had good advice up front and made sure we did as much as we could to plan for success before we started.
There you go.
But there
That's the key.
But there are some there were times when it was a little nerve-wracking. So let's chat for a moment about some of the reasons why 1031s don't work sometimes. One you mentioned is that they sometimes you just can't find a good property.
That's right.
And sometimes people, it's not uncommon for them to go grab a property just to avoid the tax, and it's not a good deal.
That's true. That's true. I've been in conversations with people like that they were up against their 45 days. They were just going to pick something, and that's the whole thing about investing is you want to be strategic, and that's not being strategic, just picking something.
Certainly one of the first things that I was counseled on in my early years of investing was, don't ever go into investment with the primary goal of saving taxes.
Right.
It's got to be a good investment.
Well, you make money on your buy. So if you're buying something in a panic, you're not being strategic. You're not investing for your better outcome. It's a last ditch effort, which isn't the way we want to invest.
Indeed. All right, so we got Linda McKnight in studio with us today talking about alternate ways of preserving your capital and not paying it on taxes when you're moving it from one asset class to another that's going to yield something higher. So when we come back, we'll get a little bit more details about how this can work. We're on Real Estate Radio Power Investing, and stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back. We have with us today Linda McKnight, who's with Your Wealth Sales Solutions. Keep Your Wealth Sales Solutions, who has a very wonderful alternative to 1031s for preserving your capital and not paying taxes when you sell a property. And we'll get into the details in that minute. Linda, let's talk a little bit more about reasons that you'd want to consider something else other than doing a 1031. And I think if 1031 works, it is simple. It is it's fairly straightforward. You can do some complex things like I've done with 1 into 13, or you can sell 2 and buy 7, and you can do reverse, which means you buy what you're going to replace. But they can get a little complex, and again, that old clock is ticking, that gun's to your head, and you can wind up either missing the target or at best being a little stressed trying to make that happen. So I think first of all, most important thing is that people should identify what they're going to get before they sell. Right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So even if you don't have the time gun at your head, which we're going to talk about in a moment, you need to have a plan.
That's right.
And some things, there's two aspects. One, you've got to, like in the case of Wilson Investment Properties, where we offer rental houses. Those houses exist. We've had people coming to us ahead of time before they sell a property. Other times they've sold a property, the clock's already ticking, and they need something, and they're asking, well, do you actually own it yet? Do you have title? Well, we generally do, and we'll reserve it for them because we understand how sensitive it is for 1031. So that's
valuable. That's very valuable for people.
That's very valuable. They know I'm an investor. They know I've been in their shoes.
Yeah, you understand.
Understand it. So,
you're a sympathetic
seller. We've had a fair amount of that. But like our syndications, our commercial multifamily syndications, you're buying shares of a corporation that owns the real estate. Mm-hmm. So it is a security. Mm-hmm. And you cannot, so you can't exchange into that.
You can't turn 1031 in because it's not like kind.
That's not like kind.
That's part of the thing with 1031s is the like kind piece of it is you're limited. So with the syndications, it's...
And within real estate, you can go pretty much from any one real property to another real property, whether it's making income or not. You can go buy land that's not producing income. But, people now are... liking some investments that are more passive, and if they can have a passive investment that's also real estate, they like that. So that's why our syndications are now quite popular. But we often have someone say, "Can I 1031 into it?" Mm-hmm. And I have to tell them, "Sorry, I can't do this."
Yeah. Well, now you can tell them otherwise.
Now we can.
Now you have a different.
So let's.
Mode.
So let's introduce the concept that you've come across. So just give us a little. Initial overview, and then we'll get into some details in the next segment. So, what do you call this approach? And give us just an overview.
Well, so with the 1031, you have to do like kind, and it's not a exit strategy. It is a replacement strategy. Mm-hmm. What this other strategy is actually an exit strategy, where a seller can walk away from close of escrow with a lump sum tax-free, nearly equal to whatever they sold the property for, and defer the taxes for 30 years.
And as I recall, they usually get about 93-94% of, okay?
Yeah, so they get nearly what they sold the property for, tax-free, in a lump sum that they are free to invest in any way they want. So they could sell a property here in the Bay Area, let's say, for example, that they have a lot of equity in, and then they can use this particular strategy and they can get their lump sum. They would put their tax bill off for 30 years and they could reinvest the proceeds in your syndications without any problem. They're free. There's, like with the 1031 and the like kind requirement, with this, there's no asset class requirement. So they can, if they, so syndication, of course, we would want to encourage them to do that, but they could also, if they wanted to buy securities, they could. If they wanted to invest in something else, they could. If they wanted to overfund a life insurance policy and do something, in that realm, they are free to invest any way they want. So those funds are unrestricted as far as how they can be invested.
And what do you call this technique? What label or name?
Well, my company has branded it. We're calling it the wealth preservation strategy. Mm-hmm. So that's what we call it. And it's a series of steps that the steps they were already in the tax code. It was just, there's one company in the United States that figured out how to put a bunch of the steps together to set up this situation so that we can have a lump sum and defer the taxes for 30 years. Okay.
So, when we come back, Linda's going to give us some more details about how you can go about having this kind of tax deferred situation, and we'll get into a little bit of the details and how you can go about it. Well, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
We have Linda McKnight with us in studio today talking about wealth preservation strategy, which is an alternative to 1031s. It does not restrict you into going to real estate directly and does not have time constraints on it. So tell us a little bit more, Linda, about this approach.
Well, it's something that it's similar to a 1031 in that there's an intermediary step in between the buyer and the seller. Mm-hmm. And with the thing about selling assets and the tax consideration is most people don't know that selling an asset is not a taxable event. That's not the problem.
I think you're right. I think most people think of the sale as being the taxable event.
Right. They think of, once you sell it, now the tax is due. Well, the sale is not the taxable event. That's not what triggers the tax. It's when the money hits your account. That's when the tax is due.
It's the income. It's the income from it.
Right.
When and if you take that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
When a seller receives the sales proceeds in their account, now that's called constructive receipt. That's an IRS term. Mm-hmm. And so once
I've noticed they have a lot of them terms.
Yeah, 17,000 pages worth of terms.
And by the way, that you mentioned that, Tom Wheelwright, who's the advisor to Robert Kiyosaki, famously says people shouldn't be so afraid of the tax code. There's only a dozen pages that tell about what you have to pay. Mm-hmm. There's almost 18,000 that tell you how you can save money and not pay taxes.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And there's many ways to legally not pay any more taxes than you legally should. Mm-hmm. And so it's finding out about these kinds of things, because the whole reason anyone ever buys investment property is because they want appreciation and it's a wealth building strategy.
Flow, yep. So
if you end up giving sometimes 30 to 50% of your appreciation away at the end of it, well, then what was the point?
That's nuts.
You're feeding the government, which, right. It's like, yes, we need the government. We need the military. We need taxes and we need the government. But this
could be a whole other discussion, but
right, exactly.
we're not going there now.
No. But the 17,000 pages part of it is the fact that there's many ways to keep that money. And that's what me and my group do, is we help people keep that money and then redeploy it in assets that are performing better. Here in the Bay Area, we have, we all know, everyone who lives in the Bay Area, that we have this appreciation swings that happen. And, great, you have a highly appreciated asset. It's sitting here at the top of the market. But if you sell it and you buy something else here, you're selling high, buying high. So that's not helping.
Well, the other important thing is a lot of people have assets that they originally bought for cash flow and they were doing okay at one time, but as rents never go up, the income never goes up in proportion to the price of the property.
Right.
So, in fact, it can be a ratio of 3 to 1 or more difference between some assets in different parts of the country and here.
Right. Exactly.
And if you acknowledge that, okay, I'm not buying this for cash flow, I'm just buying it for appreciation. It's okay, but just know that you're gambling.
That's
on
right.
that appreciation. And when you're approaching what traditionally is all the signs are that we're nearing a top of a new market.
Right.
That's a great time, I think, to get out. Mm-hmm. And
that's the whole thing right there, is how do you get out? It's the exit strategy part of it. Is a tremendous amount of time and energy and discussion goes into accumulation, but there's a whole other part of the whole thing, which is the exit part of it. And how do you exit and preserve as much of what you've accumulated as possible so that you can, move out of an appreciating market into a cash flowing market? Because appreciation is wonderful, but it doesn't put food on the table. Yep. And cash flow does. And so if you can take advantage of the appreciation and the upswing and then sell at the top, go out, reinvest in either a syndication or in a home in Texas or something that actually cash flows, then that's the best of all worlds.
Okay, more from Linda McKnight when we come back from the break about how you can go about with this type of technique of wealth preservation strategy. So stay with us on KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
We're talking about wealth preservation strategy to defer taxes with Linda McKnight today, who's an expert in that arena. And this is a topic that not many people are aware of. Don't know that there's a different way to defer taxes other than 1031s. So, Linda, I'm sure we got the attention of some of our listeners now. They want to know, all right, you're keeping this thing secret sauce. So tell them a little bit about how this thing works.
Well, the reason that we're not going into a whole lot of details is it's somewhat complicated. The takeaway from the whole thing is the buyer is unaffected, just like in a 1031. The seller walks away from this transaction with a lump sum, tax-free, and then they're free to go off and do whatever they want.
And they can invest that money into whatever they want to, other real estate or shares of a syndication or shares in stock if they would want to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Who
would want to do that? But, that it is possible. There's no asset class restriction at all, so the seller is able to invest those funds any way that they would like.
Or they could go buy gold if they want, right?
They could go buy gold. Okay. Yes, they could go.
So they got a lump sum.
They could go buy a gold mine. Or swampland or whatever they want.
So they walk away with the money, and it's like, and I would think the typical listener's like, that sounds too good to be true. What's the hitch? Right?
That's right. It does sound too good to be true. And the thing about it is it's a strategy that's been around for quite some time. It's just not well known about because the architect of this is a Harvard-trained lawyer that the way this came about was he had one client, one lawyer with one client with one problem. The lawyer solved the problem, and everyone kind of went on about their life. Well, eventually it evolved to the lawyer figured out that this one solution to this one client's problem, which was a massive capital gains tax problem, had other applications. And so now he has transitioned his business from legal practice to this is his flagship strategy that he does. And so it's not well known because he doesn't advertise a lot. It's a more one-to-one conversation. And so because this is the arena that I work in and helping people liquidate and then redeploy their money in better performing assets, I was able to find out about this. And so now this is my favorite strategy that I suggest for people because it's not only for real estate, this is for other assets too. If people have businesses that they would like to sell, which this would be a perfect thing.
It's not just a real estate deal.
Not just real estate, no. In
not
fact,
only can you invest in things that aren't real estate, like shares of whatever, syndication,
right.
but you can also, it's not just a technique that's available for selling a piece of real estate, which is fairly commonplace where a lot of equity is sit for a lot of people in California, but you can also sell other things, most
exactly.
anything.
Any asset except for securities on an exchange.
Okay.
So it's anything that has gain. So say, for example, we have a seller that has a business that, like in my family's case, we had our business for 22 years. And in the childcare industry, the businesses aren't worth a whole heck of a lot. But if you have another type of where the business is, started it in your garage and now it's maybe a multi-million-dollar business and you want to retire, well, that's all gain from the beginning to the end. It's all gain pretty much. And of course, you have expenses with, equipment things over time, but it's generally speaking, it's a huge, huge, huge tax hit.
So just like the reason for 1031, this technique is to avoid capital gains.
Correct.
Anything that's gained a lot of equity, most anything other than securities.
Yes. And even securities that are not on an exchange, like privately held stock or pre-IPO stock, people can sell those assets using this as well. Okay,
so let's get into a little bit of the other components about what happens. So you have an intermediary who you've gone and sold that asset, and that money doesn't come directly to you, right? It comes
Correct.
Through. Let's talk about the lender component of there.
Okay, so going back to the constructive receipt part of this whole conversation is in a normal sale, the seller sells directly to the buyer. In this situation, there's an intermediary step. So the seller doesn't sell directly to the buyer. The seller sells to the intermediary.
Like in a 1031.
Like in a 1031. The intermediary then sells to the end buyer. And so the seller never receives the buyer's money directly. And so then the money that is received from the buyer goes from the intermediary and then is invested. And the revenue from the investment is used to make payments. But most people don't want a payment stream. They want the lump sum. So the company that does this strategy, they have arranged with a lender to lend the seller a lump sum nearly equal to what they sold the property for. And then the seller, none of the seller's assets are at risk for, the loan isn't attached to any of the seller's assets at all. So it's an unsecured loan. all of the repayment of the loan and the interest payments and principal are all handled by the intermediary. So what happens is the seller gets cash.
Seller doesn't have to worry about that. The intermediary is taken care of.
That's right.
We're just talking about in the background, in case you wondered, here's what's happening.
Right, exactly, yeah. So there's, buyer goes away, seller goes away with their money. The intermediary then handles all the minutia in between, all the stuff that's happening in the background. Right. The seller doesn't have to manage any of that.
Has this been tested for a while? Has this been around for a while?
The IRS has looked at it, and they issued a memorandum in support of it. So we have that.
How long ago was that?
That was about 5 years ago.
Okay, all right. And so is this, or do the basic components of this approach? They've been around for some time, right? This is not brand new.
Correct.
From an IRS standpoint.
Oh yeah, correct. Yep. Correct. Yep. Yeah. And actually, to expand on that further. All the steps involved have all been in the tax code for many, many, many years. In fact, part of this is an installment sale, and that's been in the tax code from the very beginning. You
just have a smart attorney that figured out how to put these components together to take this approach, and it's been tested, and it's going just fine.
Yeah, that's right.
And so is this anybody that's interested in this, are they going to be new pioneers, or has a lot of this been done already?
There's over $100 million under management right now, so it's there's lots of sellers that are benefiting from the strategy.
Okay, wonderful. All right, if that sounds intriguing, it certainly did to me when I first heard about it. That's I always love being able to keep the hard-earned money and not pay the taxes. So we'll wrap up with a little summary here in just a moment with Linda McKnight. So stay with us on KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Nice to have you with us today, and so nice to have Linda McKnight in the studio with us, telling us about a technique that's been around for a while, but most people are not aware of. If you have an asset, real estate or otherwise, with a large capital gain, and you would like to avoid paying capital gains and move that money into something else that's for other purpose or to provide higher yields, here's a technique, wealth preservation strategy to do that. And again, just like 1031, it's a deferred capital gains.
Yes,
it's not an avoidance. It's a deferred. But we all like to be able to have money today that earns more income or have a better purpose for us, and deal with the deferred aspect later on.
That's right. We always want to pay debt with tomorrow dollars.
Yeah. That's,
so this mechanism that we're talking about, what it does is it enables the seller to defer the tax bill for 30 years. And so what that in essence does is it enables the seller to defer that in a way that they can take advantage of inflation in their favor. And so if 30 years from now, say, for example, the tax bill were $100,000, 30 years from now, the equivalent to that would be about 40 cents on the dollar, or about $40,000. So what this strategy does is it enables people to defer that and benefit from inflation in their favor. And so it's actually it's a deferral, but it's also a reduction mechanism as well, because what they're actually paying later on is 40 cents on the dollar. And so so you get, in the meantime, you get to keep that money and invest it for your benefit, and then take advantage of inflation on the growth side too. So what this whole mechanism does is it sets up the seller to be able to benefit from inflation on both sides of the equation, the growth side and the the deflation part of it as well. And
Good. Linda, how somebody reach you if they are interested in more information?
Well, my phone number is 408-679-1288. Anyone can call me and I can give them more information. We can look at their situation. I have a calculator that I can run all of their details through, and we can see, what the asset would sell for and what their situation is, and take into consideration the federal side, the state, the federal tax, the state tax, and there's also Obamacare tax. And figure out what their tax would be and if it makes sense to look at this. And there are times when a 1031 is actually an optimal strategy. Okay. We assess which is the best way for them to go.
And give that number again.
408-679-1288.
Linda McKnight. So that's great to see. There are always new things to learn about in this business. I love
absolutely.
It's a rare day that I get up to noon and I don't learn something new about my business. So this is a great technique. It's worth exploring. And you can also go to TomWilsonProperties.com or info@TomWilsonProperties.com if you want to send us, hey, could you tell me again how to get hold of Linda? And remember, also sign up for our newsletter that will give you access to lots of products that you could buy as replacements for assets that you might sell.
There we go.
We there's a lot of education information on there, and if you sign up, they'll give you access to products like commercial and multifam syndications that you can be a part of for $50,000 a share. So thank you, Linda, for being on the program today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
That was a lot of fun. Remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next. This is Tom Wilson.